Today, how's everyone doing?
Wait, Frank, can you do that again? Because the response to your call was weak.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today?
Good morning.
Just want to thank everyone for joining us today as we kick off our first annual Black Male Advancement Empowerment Summit. My name is Frank Farrow. I'm the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Black Male Advancement, and our focus is to improve outcomes for black men and boys across the city of Boston. We are a little under 2 years old, and we're thankful for Mayor Wu for creating the office and also for creating the Black Men and Boys Commission. Shout out to all of our commission members that are here today. And I'd like to welcome Tito Jackson, the chair of the Black Men and Boys Commission, to share some brief remarks.
Let's give it up for Frank one more time, brothers. I had somebody comment that told me it wasn't Easter yet, but it does feel like Easter. I'm so happy to be here. This room is a dream of mine. When we came together in 2014, this is what we were looking at. All of these brothers in this room and the ones who aren't here, I believe, are an indication of how we are doing as a city. As goes black men, goes the city of Boston. And I would submit to you, Madam Mayor, the status of black men, in particular in this room, and growing is strong. But it's about time that we get stronger. I'd like every brother to stand up and sister to stand up. I think it's important that we affirm one another and realize who we are. So I'd love for you to repeat after me. I am one.
I am one.
But I am one.
But I am one.
I cannot do everything.
I cannot do everything.
But I can do something.
But I can do something.
And what I can do,
What I can do,
I ought to do.
I ought to do.
And what I ought to do,
What I ought to do,
I will do.
I will do.
And I want you to take your right hand. Everybody know that? Okay, just want to make sure. Everybody know the right hand. I want you to turn it around. No, not you. Your hand. Your hand. Turn your hand around and give yourselves a pat on the back for being awesome, fantastic, and amazing leaders in our city. It is about time that we come together and stand together to take it to that next level. And I'll just leave you with my theory on life, and then I'm done. I already got myself a standing ovation. It's just simply that when we leave here, hopefully we get a headstone. And on that headstone, there are three important things. There's your name, the date you came here, and the date you leave. And the question is, and actually what I would submit to you is the most important thing on that headstone, is the dash. And that dash is a question mark about what did you do while you were here? What's new, different, or better? And how many folks did you hold the door open behind you? We stand in an amazing building that is named after an amazing leader, Mr. O'Brien, who held the door open for all of us. And it's up to us to continue to do the same. Thank you so much. Let's get to work, and let's have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I'm going to call up Richard O'Brien, Director of the John D. O'Brien African American Institute at Northeastern University. Thankful to Northeastern University for being our host today, a gracious host, and have made our day easy, and everything is going smooth so far. So, thank you.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Mayor Wu for having the vision to support an initiative like this, and President of our City Council, Sister Rusi. Let's give her a round of applause as well. You know, as I was listening to Brother Tito, and I was just thinking about my dad, and what would he think about this? He was a proud black man. He was a committed black man. And I know our community loves him, and he loves our community. And he would do whatever he could to stand up for our community and stand up and speak truth to power. But those who knew him know also he would speak truth to the community. And as black men, we have to take that responsibility of not only speaking truth to power, but speaking truth to our community when our community needs it. And it's important that gatherings like this continue. I'm a proud member of Concerned Black Men of Massachusetts. We meet in this building. We have a program called the Paul Robeson Institute for Positive Self-Development. And anything that we can do to impact the young people in our lives, that's what it's all about. I was told by a mentor, you can try to do big things, but make sure you do the little things too. Make sure you look at the young people in your life and ask them the question, how are you doing? What do you need? Can I help you? Take them to places, expose them to things, help them to see the world. Too often our young people get short-sighted. I can't tell you how many kids come to college and it's the first time they come out of their neighborhood. So we talk to them about study abroad or dialogue abroad. They say, what's that? They don't have passports. They don't, when you tell them they need a visa, they say, I ain't got no credit card. We have to push to get our children to see that the world is a wonderful, beautiful, humongous place that belongs to them. And that's what my dad would want us to do. When we leave here, as Brother Tito so eloquently put, we want to leave it better than we find it. And the way you leave it better than you find it is to impact some young people and help them move towards the success that we know they can do. So on behalf of all of us at Northeastern University and here at the John D. O'Brien African American Institute, I want to thank you, brothers, for coming. And please don't be a stranger. And let's make it an annual thing here, if you would like, as long as I'm here. But most importantly, let's stay connected. You know, one of the challenges we had after the Million Man March was we didn't stay together. We didn't stay committed to what we had gone to Washington, D.C. and committed to. And this is an example of renewing that commitment. Right? We ain't got 1 million in this room yet, but we can work on it. All right? So thank you all again so very much for coming. I look forward to today and being inspired. And thank you, Brother Frank. And thank you for the work that you're doing, man. All right?
Before we get into the panel discussions, we have 2 brief videos that we're going to show. The first video is from Congresswoman Frederica Wilson, the U.S. Commission on Social Status of Black Men and Boys chair.
Florida's 24th Congressional District, and I'm chair and founder of the U.S. Commission on the Social Status of Black Men and Boys. I'm honored to join you at the Black Men and Boys Empowerment in Boston. I also want to congratulate the leaders of Boston, especially Mayor Michelle Wu, for funding the Black Male Extension Office. This is important. We work with top around the country who are unfunded mandates, with people trying their hardest to change the trajectory of many of our black men and boys, and the funding is not there. Many of our black men and boys are on a path that is influenced by well-funded policies that fuel the movement towards crime and mass incarceration. All the while, programs and commissions dedicated to prevention remain underfunded or receive no attention at all. In Washington, we have the U.S. Commission on the Social Status of Black Men and Boys, which works to uplift black men and boys across the country and was established after the murder of George Floyd. Our U.S. Commission includes my colleagues, Congressman and Congressional Black Caucus Chair Stephen Horsford, Reverend Al Sharpton, the young dynamic Congressman Maxwell Frost, and the Department of Justice Assistant A.G. Kristen Clark, among others. Your Congresswoman, Ayanna Pressley, served as a member of the Board of Champions for the Commission. We are putting our heads together in Washington and joining you in the fight for the health and well-being of our brothers, fathers, uncles, and sons. We look forward to continuing to develop our partnership with Boston's Commission and Commissioners. I want to urge you to all please look to us as a resource, as we will certainly be looking to you. Your work will undoubtedly serve as a beacon of inspiration for other municipalities to follow. As cities grapple with combating crime, enhancing educational opportunities, promoting health equity, addressing gun violence, and a myriad of other challenges, uplifting black men and boys emerges as a pivotal solution that demands unwavering focus from every community. So thank you for joining us in our unified effort to interrupt the school-to-prison pipeline and champion the cause of black men and boys. And I look forward to seeing the transformative work you will accomplish. I wish you a wonderful empowerment summer, and I look forward to meeting you in Washington, D.C. soon. God bless you, God bless the city of Boston, and God bless America. Thank you.
Then we have another short video from Dr. Adrian Wilson, the Executive Director of the My Brother's Keeper Alliance.
Good morning, Boston. Really excited to join the virtual meeting. And I bring you greetings on behalf of President Obama, the Obama Foundation, and the hundreds of people that make up the national My Brother's Keeper Alliance community. I can't express enough my gratitude to Reverend Wu, to MBK Boston, to the Office of Black Male Advancement. Y'all are doing the really, really important work to move the needle and change outcomes for our boys and young men of color. As you all know, we measure our success based on 6 milestones from cradle to career. It's really important that I name those 6 milestones. Milestone 1, our children being ready to learn as they enter kindergarten. Milestone 2, reading on grade level at 3rd grade. Milestone 3, graduating from high school, but not just graduating from high school, but having all the supports that they need to move on to the next step in their lives. Milestone 4, our post-secondary milestone. And I like to say it's the recruitment, retention, and graduation of our young men of color. Milestone 5, full engagement with the workforce, not just a job, but actually a career with a living wage. And milestone 6, which is critically important, and that is how do we protect and prevent exposure to violence for our boys and young men of color. The work you're going to do today together in community is critical for the success of our boys, our black boys in Boston. I hope you have a great day. And again, thank you for letting me join you virtually today.
Before we get started, I just wanted to acknowledge our City Council President, Rusi, who is with us today. Thank you for being here. And I also saw Chief Mosso in the building. Thank you for being here, Chief of Human Services. I'd like to welcome up Glenn Jones, reporter and news anchor for NBC Team 10 Boston, who will be moderating our fireside chat. Glenn Jones, everyone. Next up, our Mayor Michelle Wu. And I just want to say, you know, when we thought of what the summer was going to be about, we focused on empowerment. We know the historic inequities that black men and boys face in the city of Boston, the generational inequities. We want to make sure the work that we're doing with our office and with the commission that we're focusing on generational pathways to wealth and success and opportunities. And just want to make sure that, you can't hear me in the back? So now we'll kick off our fireside chat. Thank you.
Test. Check. Turn it on. How's that? You got me now? Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. I have the rare treat in our community of doing this kind of conversation often, but almost never in a room like this. So this is a rare treat. I'm really, really pleased to be here for this Empowerment Summit. We're going to have a great conversation here with Mayor Wu and with Frank Farrow. Fortunately, in this room, the two of you don't need an introduction. But let me just go over a couple of milestones that I've seen over the last couple of years to just have you guys sort of fact check and have the room understand about where we are and where we hope to go on these issues. So about 2 years ago, there was a renewed commitment to highlight investment in black men and boys here in the city. We have the Office of Black Male Advancement, which is focusing on policies and issues around the racial wealth gap, education and opportunity gaps, and health equity. And Frank is leading a team of people that has grown over the last couple of years, Frank. And you've also grown your partnerships, sharpened your budget, and now you have a new report out with some recommendations that plot the course forward for the next couple of years. So that's where we are. That's pretty good. So that's a good foundation for this conversation. And Mayor, let's start by talking about the racial wealth gap, because that seems to be the triggers for so many other things that are affecting black men and boys in our community. So where do you see the opportunities for the city to stimulate progress around this issue specifically?
Well, first, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's an honor to be in this space. And with this group and with this community, and thank you so much to Frank and the entire team for all the work that it takes to put together something as fantastic as this for a day. It's months of work leading up to it. Thank you, Glenn, for always being part and visible and so involved in all the community efforts that your voice adds so much to. To Mr. Chair Jackson, who's not just leading in this iteration of the commission, but really is the reason why we have a commission in the first place. It was his leadership on the council reflecting the voices of community over a decade ago at this point to make that push. And then I'm really glad that we got to just pick up the charge, but we didn't pick it up from scratch at all. There was something already ready-made that with thanks to Council President Lujan the sponsor of the provision, Councilor Julia Mejia, and community members, we were able to get it across the finish line, get it staffed up, get the best leadership in charge of it, and off and running with all our commissioners. I want to give a shout out also. In this room, we have our Roxbury Neighborhood Liaison, who's right here, Asha Janae. Thanks for all that you do. Our Fair Housing Commissioner, Bob Terrell's in the house. David Martinez, who's the Chief of Staff of the Office of Equity in general. Anyway, I won't get it. There's lots of city folks in the room, and we are grateful for all of your service. We also, I had a little bit of Somerville envy this morning because they have fabulous I voted stickers that school committee member Andre Green is showing off this morning. So thanks for what you do, and thanks for being here as well. Are there other elected officials in the room? Okay, and shout out to City Councilor Brian Morrell, who's a member of the commission as well. On the wealth gap, we all know the numbers from, at this point, probably 6-7 years ago with the Fed's report, The Color of Wealth. They are actually in the process now of revamping and updating those numbers in partnership with community and with the city of Boston. So we look forward to not just having a figure of $8 to really define how stark the gap is, but to be able to track and measure our progress. On that front, as with everything else, it's not just that we need to know where we are and where exactly the challenges and barriers are, but to know in real time how we are doing and how we stack up against this set of efforts. It's not just trying one thing at a time, but really coming at it from all fronts. To close the racial wealth gap, it's about ownership. Home ownership and having the ability to be in full control of your surroundings, stability in your community, and that most usually biggest item in your budget. And then also ownership when it comes to businesses and entrepreneurship. So those are the areas that I'm really proud of the work that has been happening in City Hall. I won't go all the way down into the nitty-gritty, but even just a couple examples of each. Again, we're trying not just to do more with what has been done in the past, ramping up the same funding for acquiring homes that we can then keep people that in what were previously market, free market, they were hanging on as long as the landlord could let them stay, but now officially taking those units off the speculative market, so those same tenants are now there, but permanently able to not have to worry about the whims of what might come in and gentrification and all that. But in addition to long-standing programs like that, like the Acquisition Opportunity Program, we have been building pathways from Section 8 and public housing directly into home ownership, skipping over all the steps in between. We've been looking at city-owned parcels of land and trying to get those out and turned into housing built by local developers, development teams of color, as quickly as possible, and also large-scale parcels that have been put out for development that the city has held on to for a very long time as parking lots, when it turns out we can actually, put the parking somewhere else or build it into a structure but then build homes on top. Similarly with existing city buildings that needed renovation, like libraries or community centers, having a framework where we can put housing on top of that as the renovations are happening. We also committed this year to do something that is a big goal, and it's going to be, when we get there, might be one of the most transformational pieces of really trying to retake our opportunities when it comes to public housing. I actually this last year for State of the City, when I had been running the speech by and the concepts by some different people, someone actually said to me, try to avoid talking about or using the term public housing, right? It has such a bad connotation. It might seem, evoke images of old style buildings that people didn't feel safe in or around. And in fact, when we boil it down, the word public should have a positive connotation in any context that it's used. Because public means it's one of those spaces that's doing something that we can only do together. Public libraries, public parks, public schools. These are all places where we're investing in each other and recognizing that we all benefit when we all benefit. And so public housing we kind of have to take back that narrative a little bit, that housing is just something that we all need, but at the same time, you can trade it and it's in the market and it's subject to the whims of whoever wants to make the most profit. There's actually a way for housing also through BHA and through how we treat and fund and resource public housing to be that investment in all of us. Other countries do this a lot differently when it comes to public housing, and we in Boston are actually 2,900 units short of the amount that the federal government will fund. And so one very important place is we got to keep the pipeline growing. In order to have more home ownership, we have to get more people into housing stability pipelines to begin with. On the business ownership side, there's a whole lot more that Chief Shagun Idawu can point to, but we've passed new laws at the city and the state level to allow greater control and supplier diversity in city contracting. We are tracking those numbers, and each year have more than doubled the percentage of contracts and the dollars going to businesses owned by residents of color and by Boston-based businesses, and we have big goals that we want to keep doubling that for some time to come.
You mentioned home ownership in your response. We'll circle back to that because it does seem to be such a large part of the solution making around these issues. Frank, if the mayor is talking there at the policy level, at the ground level, talking to people one-on-one, how are you able to utilize your budget to attack the disparities in wealth from that direction?
So utilizing our budget, I think one of the key programs that we created in partnership with BPS, shout out to BPS, we got a few BPS students in the building today. So we have a partnership with the Division of Student Support and Corey McCarthy, who's here as well, the Chief of Student Support. We created a program called Reach 1000. And the components of that program, we have an opportunity lab that provides the support and assistance for first-time college students that are looking to go to college. They get assistance with college application support, FAFSA support. We know the data coming from BPS, a lot of our black male students are not even enrolled and signed up for FAFSA. So that's a key indicator that they're not even prepared for college. So we're investing and focusing on that, but also the pathways to career in college, where we're working with some local colleges to get them early college opportunities and internship opportunities. Because I think it's key to make sure that we're working with our young students, that they see the pathway to career, they see a pipeline, and they can see themselves in spaces like this amongst a lot of positive black men in the community, and that they are leaders now. And then someday one of the students back here from BPS will be in my seat, you know, leading the office.
Or this seat.
In the
Well, let's talk a little bit more about education, Mayor, because 25% of the population of black males are under the age of 25, and so much of their future is determined by the quality of their public school education. So what do you need to do as an administration, and what do you need from the community to make sure that those boys are getting the education they deserve?
Well, I'll try to channel Corey as best I can in reflecting a bit of BPS's approach now and the potential that we know is still possible. One thing that BPS and kind of the top administrators do at the start, or actually before the start of each academic year, is they get a list of all the students who had above a certain number of absences the school year before. And then we go and knock on all those doors to check in with the family, to bring some backpacks and school supplies, and just to say, hey, you are wanted and beloved and welcome back at school, and tell us what we need to do better to make school more relevant, more exciting, more supported. And, 9 times out of 10, there was some unforeseen circumstance. A family member had a medical issue, housing situation had some challenges, things outside of anything that was related to what goes on in the classroom ended up affecting the ability for our schools to be that place where students could get support. And so, again, it's hard to say, we just have to do things within BPS without addressing all of the other factors. But for the students who shared a little bit also about what would need to change or adapt within BPS, they wanted their education to be relevant now. They wanted a reason to feel excited about going, not just because they had to learn some things that would be on a test that didn't seem to connect at all to their future, but they wanted to have a direct pathway to become a nurse or an engineer or a sneaker designer. They wanted to feel like they could go and not only have the chance to learn, but also play sports or play an instrument or pick up on whatever the other passion was that might not necessarily be directly reflected in the academic curriculum. And so the goal is that across the board, we are trying to really focus on early education, getting families the best possible start, getting them in the door. We know the uptake rates of the transition are exponentially smoother when we can get young people in the kind of BPS fold and in our universal pre-K fold as early as possible. And then on the high school side, make sure there's an early college and career track for every single high school, a major partner attached to every single high school. Lately, we've announced Mass General Brigham coming in and partnering for the very first time to create direct job guarantees with the EMK Health Careers Academy. They have great need in their industry as well, and so they're building out career tracks so that the students would get that opportunity during school, but then also a job guarantee for right after school with the commitment they would continue their higher education while working and having that financial support coming in at the same time. Same thing on climate jobs, the renovations and work that will happen at Madison Park, the connections between UMass Boston and the BCLM McCormick High School. Everywhere possible, we're trying to open up so that the entire city is our students' classrooms. And then when it comes to Black men and Black boys in particular within the school system, to support the programs that Frank was referencing, BAM, Reach 1000, and 10 boys, 10 boys, and they're MBK as part of Reach 1000 and all of the umbrella programs that fall under that, to have spaces where our young people have the opportunity to create this kind of environment during the school day with their peers. And that goes for our educators as well, right? We need to make sure that our teachers, our education workforce reflects the students and the student population, the communities that they're serving, and that recruitment and retention is a priority that needs to have even more resources dedicated at such a difficult time for the kind of education field coming out of the pandemic still and with all the disruption that's been happening. But we've been seeing, nationally, education is under attack, right? What the books, the types of materials, what you can talk about, what counts as quote-unquote history, how they even talk about widely acknowledged horrific parts of our history. Boston needs to be that national example of how we build an education system that reflects the truths of our history, that reflects our community today, that involves education and the diversity of our workforce. It involves also how we make choices about our curriculum. And so the equitable literacy focus that Superintendent Skipper and the BPS team have been pushing through have been not just on reaching some of the milestones that were discussed in the video earlier around reading level and literacy across the board, but that the materials really matter. Materials have to reflect the cultures and communities and identities of our students. This last year, we started the pilot of expanding AP African American history being taught in the Boston Public Schools, now at 10 different high schools. And we want to make sure that our curriculum is one more draw to get those young people to school, along with all the other opportunities that we're creating to wrap around them.
All right, I was told yesterday there might be an MBK student here who would have a question to contribute to this dialogue. Is that person here now? No?
Or any other student?
I'm sure they got questions, that's for sure.
Okay. Well, we'll prepare to get those questions asked. Just stand by on that. Frank, on the point of economic opportunities, what type of programs are you focused on to make sure those opportunities are connected with Black men and boys in our city?
So a few programs that we have under our office, one of them is a program called Project Opportunity, where we focus on ensuring that black men in the city have access and opportunity to employment. There's a lot of barriers to employment for black men. And so we have a partnership where we host hiring fairs, job fairs, and recently we hosted a hiring day where we had over 202 black men that came, and we had a number of city departments. I think it's easy to focus externally on what everyone else is doing, but I think it's important that we, as a city, to show, improve, and lead. And so our focus is making sure that we're boosting the workforce in the city of Boston. So, and if you look around, the mayor's done an excellent job of, from top to bottom, there's black men in leadership at all levels in the city of Boston, and we want to continue to make sure that we have those pathways. We actually have a high school intern from BPS, I think he's here now, who's interning right now with us, Jordani, from O'Brien.
So were some people hired from that forum or on the way to being hired?
Yeah, so we've had interviews, and there are some that are on their way to be hired. I think we had like 9 different departments in the city of Boston, and I think over 100 job opportunities. So there will be a lot of folks from that hiring day that will be employed within the city of Boston. And one of the other programs that we have in partnership with the Economic Opportunity Department, the small business team, is focusing on, the city we procure a lot of dollars, but a lot of black businesses are not benefiting. And so our focus, the key step in order to gain and work with the city of Boston, you have to be a vendor. So we hosted vendor opportunity sessions where we registered a number of black businesses to be vendors. So now we can make sure that they know about the opportunities, whether it's a grant. Our office, we try to make sure every dollar that comes out of our office goes to a black business in the city of Boston.
All right, great, thank you. Really tangible stuff there. Let's go back to home ownership, because that is such a juggernaut in this whole discussion. And on the point of home ownership, I understand the way you articulate the policies around making sure that there's opportunities in the black community for home ownership. But one of the ways to get there is to make housing more affordable. And I know you must have this political stumbling block with the people who already own homes and don't want them to be devalued in order for their neighbor to also have the opportunity to get a home. How do you juggle it all? How do you make it so that we can get to a more affordable place, but the people who already have feel like they're not losing something in the equation?
I think we all, it's a time in the world where there's a lot of differing opinions and perspectives and really wide spreads on opinions, and sometimes even really wide divisions when it comes to what the facts even are. But often, the place where you can find, hopefully, everyone on board is to think about the future for our kids, right? If you think about what you want to pass on to that next generation, whether it's your own family or that sense of, when there are young people in the mix, what do we want for them? We all want them to have a better life than we have had. And that's at the root of so many of our own family stories as well. And so I try, where possible, when we're talking about something as tangible as someone's view out of their home, right? That lot that is right next door to them, or their own neighborhood, to make the connection that this isn't just about, whether your life is going to be immediately changed as an individual, but what the next several generations are going to experience. And once we can kind of zoom out beyond just one parcel, one building, one development fight, over into what do we want our community, what do we want our village to have as a whole for everyone to thrive together, that's when we start to find some real common ground around change. Sometimes it's hard.
It's a struggle, right?
I guess we are trying to overhaul our entire zoning system. I'll put this out there. Boston's, one of the least talked about but most important parts of city power is in shaping the built environment. who can build, where, how high, and when. And when, in most other cities, there's a city planning department that works alongside the city transportation department, the school department, and every housing department, everywhere else. They make decisions about what's needed, they set rules, and then for every private developer, if what you want to do can make you money within those rules, go for it and do it, and we'll make sure you do it properly and safely along the way, but that's how growth and development happens. In Boston, we are still operating basically off of a zoning code that hasn't been comprehensively updated since 1965. The needs of the city are a little bit different now. The neighborhoods are very different now, and the financials are all different now. And so every single project that happens needs an exception to those rules, which means that those who know someone have the best way to get something built, rather than having it being able to go in and predictably, as vendors or as builders or as developers, know what the landscape is, know where your opportunity is, and then do that. So we know we have a lot of work to do. We're basically decades of work to come back from. We know there's infrastructure that is aging that we're now trying to fix after decades of deferred maintenance, whether it's our school buildings or any other type of roads and all that. But we have to start in bite-sized chunks that make it real and also let us have the room to improve our processes as we go. The Squares and Streets process that Chief Arthur Jemison has just kicked off is meant to say, rather than doing even one neighborhood at a time, which is still too big for everyone to really kind of come to common ground on in a reasonable time frame, we're just going to look at one corridor at a time. That neighborhood small business street where everyone's familiar, you know the small businesses, you know they could use more foot traffic and customers, and sometimes that's the most logical place to start thinking about adding housing on top of those businesses that would directly support them. So that's what we're trying to do, is take a process that is going to be huge, but really make it real, not by sweeping some broad brushstrokes and hoping it works, but by taking bite-sized chunks, working through it, and continuing to listen and improve as we go through that process.
So is it a priority of yours to really overhaul that 65 zoning structure and policy?
So let me put it this way. Most cities our size have a zoning code that's somewhere like 700, 750 pages long. If you think about, pages are pages, everything's digital these days, but if you think about that as a kind of proxy for how complicated it is to get through the zoning process, even New York City has a shorter zoning code than Boston does. Our zoning code is 4,000 pages long. Every single thing has its own special use case. Every part of the city's been carved up. And it is, I think, the biggest and most impactful way that city government can actually contribute to wealth building is to set the parameters for the private market to do its thing alongside us. Right? Our programs will change lives because we're able to create home ownership, help with down payments here or there, but it'll be, hundreds of residents at a time. When the private market gets on the same page as the public sector, that is when you get into tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of families being impacted at that scale and kind of things running on its own. So we need to get there. It's going to be a little bit of time to kind of not only build a new system, but also build trust in a new system and a new process of how to do that.
Okay, so then Frank, in the meantime, what is the office doing to make sure the community is ready for homeownership? How do they prepare themselves?
So one of the things we're doing, the mayor's office, the Office of Housing is doing an amazing job with programs for first-time home buyers, down payment assistance, as well as buying down interest rates. So for us, our job is to make sure that our community is aware of these programs and make sure that we're connecting them to them so they can benefit. And then on the flip side, with the Welcome Home Boston program, making sure that Black developers are prepared to become developers. So we're tackling wealth on the homeownership side as well as the developer side. And so, the key for us is to make sure that we're creating those opportunities and pathways, whether it's technical assistance, public-private partnerships. And so, as our office is, expanding the work, where, for us, it's a prioritization on, not only the homeownership side, but the developer side, because we need to live, but we also should be benefiting off of the building that is up and down Blue Hill Ave in our community.
Can we give some examples on that to make it
Sure,
really
please.
concrete of, there are some big policy changes that are coming everywhere across the country. Cities are dealing with climate change, cities are dealing with trying to move to a cleaner energy system, and cities everywhere also are struggling with the housing crisis. I want to give one example on each of these of the business opportunities that this creates that we have to be on top of and in front of in order for this to also work to meet the goals of closing the racial wealth gap rather than exacerbating it. So on the homeownership side, one thing that is happening later this year is that ADUs will be made permissible across the entire city. Accessory dwelling units, which is I think, unnecessary national way of saying in-law units, granny flats, that extra space where your, grandma can have the unfinished basement turned into a beautiful, accessible home for them, or the kind of extra space in the backyard as an extra unit for, new college grad to stay and get their feet set before they go on to their next place. That allows multi-generational families to stay together, but we want those opportunities to be for the current homeowners rather than to be for developers from outside the community who are coming and then transforming everything and pushing folks out. We are creating templates in on the Office of Housing side to set the exact parameters and standards for how to build these units and how to make them safe and easy. This is going to be a huge opportunity across every neighborhood for builders to come in, and if this becomes a specialty, it could be home after home after home. We're making some financing available for loans as well, but this is an example where the moment after that legal change happens, it opens up a whole new economy, and we want this community and we want Boston residents to be ready to seize onto the economic opportunities, not just the home ownership opportunities. On the energy side, for example, we are going to, I don't know if we're even kind of fully wrapping our minds around how fast that transition is going to happen with electric vehicle chargers and then trying to make sure that electric vehicles have space. The city's just starting to dabble now with 2 RFPs that have gone out to test out different methods of sidewalk chargers that are getting installed, but I think within the next 5 to 10 years, similarly, this is going to be a huge opportunity to do those installations, to make sure that that those charging stations are accessible. We need that in every single neighborhood, really almost every single block. And so that's the kind of way where through the Office of Black Male Advancement, hopefully we're connecting the dots on anticipating the policy outcomes and therefore preparing for the economic impact.
All right, let's see if we can get a couple of questions from students who are in the room for either the mayor or for Frank Farrow. I feel like I'm getting a whole vibe from this table over here. So let's get somebody from that table over there. If you got a question, just stand up, and I think we'll be able to hear you.
Hello, my name is Tobias, and my question is what role does access to quality early childhood education play in the academic disparities experienced by Black students later in the educational journey?
All right.
Well, thanks, Ahmed. I so appreciate the question, and this, you really got at the heart of it. If there's any place, even if someone, their main interest is they care about economic returns or, demonstrating dollars back, this is the place where for every dollar that we put into early education and childcare, we get back 10 times that return as a whole to our society. And yet, the gaps that we see, especially through the pandemic when so many early childcare businesses and early education spaces shut down, that Boston has a real challenge. We actually have a challenge that is not about quantity, but about access. We have a lot of providers that are, in fact, local homeowners or residents who are trying to take care of their own children, who have sort of informally or started a child care business, but without necessarily the supports of how to run that as a business. And so for the first time, the city, when we created our new Office of Early Childhood, we expanded the universal pre-K program to also include not just spots in our schools, spots at community centers like the YMCA or other well-known organizations, but also home-based childcare where we can provide some of the training, resources, professional development, and curriculum and pay so that our early education workforce has that consistency as well. The goal is that when you start kindergarten with a solid foundation from pre-K and early education, you are exponentially more likely to be at that third grade reading milestone that was mentioned as one of the most important ways that we are sort of supporting and measuring our success. The numbers are very clear. Where we need childcare and where we need early education is precisely in communities of color. And so the city's put out a number of programs to help pay for the tuition and licensing and training of the early education workforce for providers of color and for Boston-based providers to then stay in Boston and teach here. We've also opened up new spaces by changing how we do the funding, but the whole goal is to link it very closely with BPS and our public school system so that it's an easy transition. We are the oldest public school district in the country, right? We have the first elementary school anywhere in the country, dating back to the 1600s, when the very first 6 students went to the Mather School, and everyone else paid a little bit from their cattle fees so that these kids would have a free education. And that was a crazy idea at the time, right? You had to pay for education most other places. But in Boston, they decided it was worth it that everyone would chip in a little bit so that these first 6 kids could eventually be the leaders that we all needed. Now, we've treated our system that way for almost 400 years since the Mather School. But we still keep pretending like kids all of a sudden just appear when they're 5 years old and then they need free education, when in fact from birth to 5 is the most important time in development. And so that is the key gap to close, and we need your help in closing it too if this is an issue you're interested in, so we'd love to get you more involved.
We'll take one more question from that table if you guys got another one, and then we're going to have to wrap up, unfortunately. What's that? Yeah, but there's other panels too, so stand by. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Jamari, and the question I have today is, what proactive measures can educational institutions implement to address the historical and ongoing inequalities faced by Black students and ensure equality opportunities for
That's a great question. I think one of the key things that our educational institutions need to do is listen to you. Your voice, your education, and it's important that we listen to you and what you have to offer, what you recommend to improve educational outcomes. But I think there's a lot of work that's happening, and we just need to continue to improve on that work to make sure that we're building and supporting you throughout your educational journey and setting you up for success post-high school, whether it's college, whether it's career, that we're preparing you for the next level. And so, continue to be a voice, continue to be an advocate, and I think you're at the table with the right people to make sure that we're moving in the right direction at BPS.
Can I just make sure we just get this young man's question answered? We diverse the space. Please allow this young man to ask this question. It's directly related. It's
Go right ahead.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Jaden with More Than Words. My question is, how can we directly support youth dealing with DCF so that the pipeline can slow down with knowing that 65% of children dealing with DCF and system involvement also are incarcerated and end up in jail? So how can we slow that down or stop that, put an end to that? Good question.
Thanks, Jaden, and thanks, James, for making sure that we got this question in, because it's incredibly important. And it's actually a big part of the work that we hadn't touched on a lot today, about the need for not just coordinating with city agencies, but coordinating with state agencies, and particularly when it comes to this overlap of safety and of economic opportunity and education. I didn't see Dr. Isaac Yablo in the room this morning, but he is everywhere when it comes to making sure we're rethinking our approach to how we serve young people, particularly those who are court involved and might have had some interaction with the legal system. We now have revived, after a long period where this wasn't happening, a weekly meeting where 20 different agencies from all different levels of government and community providers are at the table together, really but providing kind of intensive case management and planning around student by student what might be needed. There's really no one size fits all, and I think oftentimes when we apply one size fits all, that's where young people who are connected with DCF or similar situations end up falling through the cracks of a system that wasn't designed for them. And so we're really trying to make this a person-by-person approach and really getting into what kinds of opportunities are available, what kinds of supports are necessary, what are the family constellations or school communities that become family constellations. But if you have ideas or instructions for us on what we should be doing, please, I'll come see you after this, because I'd love to. Okay, I'll make sure. It sounds like there was more there, and I'd love to make sure we're doing what we can. Chief Masso, is there anything you want to flag on this point around young people in DCF?
Nothing outside of what Dr. Gallo has been working on, but what I would say is more on the preventative measures. So just in terms of what are we doing beforehand? So I think the question that you had asked about early education, like we're thinking really early on, like what are we doing on the front end as far as either programming, services, or resources to make sure that when the young men or young women reach the age of 12, 13, 14, that we are not having this conversation. So they're not even systems impacted just yet. You know what I mean? So like we are preventing that from happening. So I think the focus has really been on the upstream approach because, you know, more likely than not, we're talking about after they've been a part of the system, right? So we're trying to get ahead of that to figure out what it is that we can do to prevent that from happening. So like a lot of the work and focus and, you know, the support from our mayor has been around pouring resources and supplies into the front end. So we're not having this conversation, you know, 5, 10 years from now.
All right, well, it's pretty clear. There are solution creators and decision makers in this room. That's the power of having this summit. And I think we got it off to a good start in this fireside chat. Mayor Wu, Frank Farrow, thank you very much.